In the control room of the International Space Monitoring Station, ISS on Earth, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Captain Jacob Miles stood beside Dr. Alan Reed, the project's lead scientist, their eyes fixed on the large screens displaying data from the deep space probe, Sentinel-9. Any moment now, Alan. It's been a quiet journey for Sentinel-9, but I've got a feeling about today, Jacob said, his voice betraying a mix of excitement and anxiety. Alan nodded, adjusting his glasses. If your hunches are as good as they say, we might be on the verge of something monumental. His eyes never left the screen, where blips and codes translated the silent language of the cosmos. Suddenly, a junior technician, Lisa, called out, "Dr. Reed, Captain Miles, you'll want to see this. We're receiving a transmission, but it's not like anything Sentinel-9 is programmed to send. Put it on the main screen, Lisa. Let's see what we're dealing with," Alan instructed, his demeanor shifting to one of intense focus. The room dimmed as the main screen flickered, then stabilized to show a complex pattern of lights and sounds that clearly wasn't man-made. Jacob leaned forward, whispering, "That's not ours. It can't be." Alan responded, almost to himself, "It's structured. Coded. It's a message, Jacob. From someone else." The room erupted in a low murmur of disbelief and excitement as more staff gathered around the screens. Jacob, thinking on his feet, said, "We need to respond. Alan, can we send a reply?" Alan nodded. "Yes, but carefully. We'll compose a basic mathematical sequence, prime numbers universal. Lisa, prepare the transmission." Minutes turned into hours as the team worked on crafting a reply. Finally, Lisa transmitted the sequence. The waiting began again, a tense vigil of humans staring into the abyss of space, hoping for a whisper in return. The reply came quicker than anyone expected. The alien message evolved, showing a remarkable understanding of the sequence sent. "Intelligent response. They understood us," exclaimed Lisa, her voice a mixture of awe and excitement. "Prepare a meeting, everyone," Jacob announced. "We need to discuss our next steps. This changes everything." Hours later, in the conference room, the team sat with several global defense advisors and space experts, debating the implications. Jacob, leading the discussion, suggested, "We need a unified approach. This is bigger than any one nation." General Davis, a senior military advisor, was cautious. "Jacob, we must consider the security implications. We don't know what intentions they might have." Jacob understood the concern, but argued, "This is a chance for a peaceful first contact. We must not let fear dictate our actions. We propose an open line of communication, under international oversight." Dr. Reed added, "The scientific potential is unprecedented. We could be on the cusp of a new era of understanding." After hours of deliberation, a consensus emerged. An international coalition, led by Jacob and Dr. Reed, would oversee Earth's communications with the newfound alien civilization. As the meeting concluded, Jacob felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Walking back to his office, Jacob mused aloud to Alan, "We're stepping into the unknown, my friend. Let's hope our first steps are in the right direction." Alan, ever the scientist, smiled. "And let's hope they're friendly. After all, we're about to invite them over, aren't we?" The gravity of their situation was clear, but so was the opportunity. As Earth readied itself for what was to come, Jacob and Alan knew their actions would echo in the annals of human history. Their journey had just begun. As the early hours of the morning cast a dim glow through the windows of the International Space Monitoring Station, ISMS, Captain Jacob Miles felt the restless energy of the control room. Weeks had passed since the first contact, and the data exchanges with the Valaris, a name the aliens had used for themselves, were becoming increasingly complex. Alongside Jacob, Dr. Alan Reed and General Davis monitored the latest transmission, deciphering the implications. "Look at this, Jacob," Alan said, pointing to a segment of the data on the screen. "Their technology is decades, if not centuries, ahead of ours. They've mastered energy manipulation on a scale we can't even imagine." General Davis, arms crossed, frowned deeply. "It's impressive, but it's also terrifying. Do they expect us to just accept that they can enforce whatever they choose?" Before Jacob could respond, the room's main communication line beeped loudly, signaling an incoming transmission not from space, but from the United Nations' newly formed Extraterrestrial Affairs Committee. Jacob accepted the call, and the stern face of Ambassador Liu appeared on the screen. "Captain Miles, Dr. Reed, General Davis," Ambassador Liu greeted them. we have a critical update. The Valaris have just declared that due to what they perceive as aggressive tendencies inherent in human history, they are imposing a quarantine on our entire solar system, effective immediately. Silence fell over the room as the weight of her words sank in. Jacob was the first to break the silence. A quarantine? Are they locking us in here based on a judgment of what they've read in our history books? That's exactly it, Ambassador Liu confirmed. They fear that if human civilization expands beyond Earth, it might pose a threat to other sentient beings in the galaxy. Alan shook his head in disbelief. They judge our entire species by our past? We've grown beyond those dark times. General Davis turned to face the screens displaying outer space imagery. How are they enforcing this quarantine? They've constructed a barrier using a network of satellites equipped with some form of advanced energy shield. It encircles the entire solar system. Our probes can't get through. Neither can any signals. Jacob leaned forward, his mind racing. We need to respond. We can't let this stand. It's imprisonment without trial. Ambassador Liu nodded. The United Nations agrees. That's why, Captain, we are assembling a team to address this. We want you to lead the effort. Your experience with the Valaris makes you the ideal candidate. Jacob straightened, accepting the mantle. We'll start right away. Alan, we need to gather every piece of data we have on the barrier. Weak points, composition, anything. Alan turned to his console, his fingers already flying over the keys. On it, Jacob. We'll find a way through this. General Davis added, and I'll coordinate with the Global Defense Forces. We need to understand our options if things escalate. Jacob addressed Ambassador Liu. We'll keep you updated, Ambassador. We're not going to sit by and let this happen. After ending the call, Jacob, Alan, and General Davis convened a strategy session. They were joined by a team of experts in various fields: astrophysics, diplomacy, military strategy, and xenosociology. Together, they began to outline their initial responses to the quarantine, balancing the urgency of action with the need for caution in dealing with a technologically superior civilization. The meeting stretched into hours, with every possible scenario being debated and planned for. Jacob stood by the large window overlooking the Earth, a silent sentinel in the void. Turning back to his team, he reaffirmed their resolve. We're in uncharted waters, he acknowledged, but we'll navigate them together. Let's show the Valaris that humanity isn't defined by the shadows of its past, but by the light of its present will and actions. As the team dispersed to begin their tasks, Jacob remained at the window, watching the first light of dawn creep across the planet. The challenge was immense, but so was the resolve to overcome it. In a secluded base on Mars, hidden within the Valles Marineris, Jacob Miles oversaw the bustling activity of what had unofficially been dubbed Operation Breakout. The base had been transformed into a hive of scientific innovation and strategic planning. Jacob, Dr. Alan Reed, and a team of Earth's finest minds were deep into their clandestine project to circumvent the Valaris quarantine. Jacob walked through the facility with Colonel Harland, the military liaison assigned to ensure the project's security. The corridors echoed with the sounds of hurried footsteps and urgent conversations. We've got to move faster, Harland. Every day we're stuck here, we're losing time that the Valaris are using to strengthen their hold, Jacob asserted. Colonel Harland nodded, his face grim. I understand, Captain. I'll push the teams for an update on the propulsion and shielding tech we're developing. They stopped outside the main lab where Alan was overseeing the assembly of the prototype craft, named Spearhead. The vessel was designed to penetrate the quarantine barrier, using a combination of high-energy pulses and a new stealth technology that minimized its detection. Alan, how are we looking? Jacob asked as he entered the lab. Alan looked up from his console, where schematics and data streams flickered rapidly. We're close, Jacob. The propulsion system is more or less operational. The challenge remains with the energy shield. It's still not stable enough to withstand prolonged exposure to the barrier's energy field. Jacob peered at the data, his brow furrowed. What do you need to get it there? We need a better understanding of the barrier's composition. Theoretical models aren't enough. We need actual data, Alan replied, frustration evident in his tone. Then let's get you that data. Harland, organize a recon mission. We need scans of that barrier, up close and personal, Jacob ordered. Within hours, a specially outfitted drone was launched from the Martian base, making its way stealthily towards the quarantine barrier. The team waited anxiously for the data it would bring back. The drone's mission was a success, providing them with invaluable readings and samples of the barrier's energy signature. Armed with this new data, Alan and his team worked relentlessly, tweaking the spearhead's shielding systems. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in the base grew tense with the pressure of their task. During a late-night testing session, the breakthrough finally came. The shield held stable under conditions simulating the barrier's energy field. Cheers erupted in the lab, a rare moment of relief and joy amidst the strain of their clandestine work. Jacob clapped Alan on the shoulder. "Brilliant work, Alan. Let's prepare for a manned test. It's time to see if Spearhead can do what we've designed her to do." As preparations for the test flight began, Jacob addressed the entire base over the comm system. "Everyone, this is it. All your hard work, the long hours, the sacrifices, it's all leading up to this. We're not just fighting for our right to explore the stars. We're fighting for our right to exist as equals in this galaxy. Let's make sure we succeed." The day of the test arrived with a palpable buzz throughout the base. Jacob, suited up as Spearhead's pilot, looked over at Alan and Harland at the control station. "See you on the other side, gentlemen." With a nod from Alan, Jacob entered the cockpit. The countdown began, and as the engines ignited, Spearhead shot forward, a lone vessel against the vast power of an interstellar quarantine. Minutes later, a triumphant voice crackled over the base's speakers. "Control, this is Spearhead. I've breached the barrier. Repeat, I am through." The base erupted in applause, their cheers echoing off the walls. They had done it. They had defied the Valaris and opened the door to humanity's return to the stars. But as Jacob turned Spearhead around to return to Mars, he knew the hardest part of their journey was just beginning. The successful breach of the Valaris quarantine barrier by Captain Jacob Miles in the Spearhead marked a historic moment for humanity. Yet the aftermath brought immediate consequences. Within hours of Jacob's return to the Mars base, a stream of encrypted signals bombarded their systems, an unmistakable sign that the Valaris had detected the breach. In the central strategy room, Jacob stood with Colonel Harland, Dr. Alan Reed, and the newly arrived Dr. Helen Choi, an expert in alien communications, deciphering the flurry of incoming messages. "Can you make any sense of this?" Jacob asked Helen, pointing towards the streams of complex alien script cascading across the screen. Helen adjusted her glasses, tapping into the data with rapid keystrokes. "It's a warning," she concluded after a few tense moments. "The Valaris are demanding an explanation for the act of aggression, their words. They've made it clear that any further attempts to breach the barrier will result in severe repercussions." Colonel Harland clenched his fist. "So they slap a quarantine on us without justification, and we're the aggressors for wanting out? Unfortunately, from their perspective, we just confirmed their fears about us," Alan added, his voice filled with frustration. Jacob paced the room, thinking through their options. "We need to prepare for every scenario, including the possibility that they might escalate their response. Helen, draft a reply. Explain our actions as self-defense, a response to unwarranted imprisonment." As Helen set to work, Jacob convened a meeting with the project's military and scientific leaders. "We breached their barrier once," he began, addressing the room, "and we can do it again. But next time we might be met with force. We need to be ready." Plans were swiftly put into action. Jacob authorized increased production of Spearhead-like crafts, incorporating the successful shield technology. Training for pilots began immediately, focusing on evasion and quick strikes, intended to disable rather than destroy, hoping to minimize further escalation. Meanwhile, Dr. Reed and his team enhanced their understanding of the barrier, working on ways to make it more permeable for human technology without alerting the Valaris. "If we can tweak the barrier's energy matrix subtly, we could weaken it just enough to slip more ships through unnoticed," Alan proposed during one of their brainstorming sessions. Weeks passed as Earth's response was meticulously planned and resources mobilized. Humanity's plight and their defiant steps toward liberation were kept under strict secrecy, known only to a select few within the global leadership to prevent public panic. One evening, as the red Martian sunset cast long shadows over the base, Jacob and Alan stood watching the new fleet of modified spearheads being readied. "You think they'll let us be if we keep pushing like this?" Alan asked, a hint of doubt in his voice. Jacob looked at the crafts, then at his friend. "It's about showing them that we won't be intimidated into submission. We're not looking to start a war, Alan. We're looking to end our confinement." Just then, Helen approached them with a tablet in hand. "I've sent the message. And there's something else." I've been monitoring the Valaris communications network. It's not just us they're worried about. There are others, other civilizations under similar restraints. It seems the Valaris have made a habit of this. This new information settled heavily on them. So we're not alone, Jacob mused. That could change things. Knowing there are others could lead to alliances, shared knowledge. It could tip the scales. With renewed purpose, they returned to the control center to plan their next move. Every action, every decision, was now part of a larger play for not just their freedom, but potentially that of others across the stars. The stakes were high, but the resolve of Earth's defenders was higher. Tensions escalated quickly following the discovery that humanity was not the only civilization under Valaris quarantine. This revelation stirred a new resolve within the ranks of Earth's defenders, bolstering their determination to stand against the Valaris' oppressive actions. Under Jacob's leadership, the Mars base became the epicenter of strategic operations, planning not just for Earth's liberation, but potentially aiding other quarantined worlds. Colonel Harland and Dr. Alan Reed convened with Jacob in the strategy room, where the latest intelligence reports lay scattered across the table. The Valaris are likely to make a move soon, Harland noted grimly, his eyes scanning satellite images showing Valaris fleet movements near the quarantine barrier. We've been preparing for this, Jacob replied, his voice steady despite the weight of their situation. Our new spearhead fleet is ready, and our pilots are the best. We strike first, hit them where it hurts, and show them we're not just going to roll over. Alan, looking over the energy readings from the barrier, added, and we have a tactical advantage. We know more about their technology now. If we can disrupt their control over the barrier, even momentarily, it might give us an opening for a more substantial offensive. The plan was set into motion. A fleet of spearhead ships, enhanced with the latest technology capable of penetrating and temporarily disabling sections of the barrier, was dispatched. Their target was a critical control hub located on a Valaris satellite that coordinated barrier operations. The assault was to be swift and precise, aiming to minimize casualties while maximizing impact. Jacob watched from the command center as the fleet approached the target. The tension was palpable. Every member of the team knew the gravity of their mission. As the ships neared the satellite, they deployed their energy disruptors, sending cascading waves of interference into the Valaris systems. For Earth and freedom, Jacob murmured as he watched the operation unfold on the screens. The initial strike was successful. The satellite's defenses were momentarily confused by the unexpected attack, giving the spearhead ships enough time to deliver their payloads. However, the Valaris response was swift and brutal. Within minutes, a counterattack was launched. The Valaris, using their advanced weaponry, struck several key Earth bases on Mars and the Moon. The base on Mars shook under the impact of the attacks, alarms blaring and lights flickering as everyone rushed to emergency stations. Damage reports now, Jacob commanded, gripping the console as another tremor rocked the base. Reports came pouring in. Infrastructure was heavily damaged, and there were casualties. The reality of their situation was stark. This was war, with all its attendant horrors. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of success. The control hub had been damaged significantly, causing disruptions in the barrier that could provide opportunities for future actions. We need to regroup and assess, Jacob stated, his mind already moving to the next steps. Get me a secure line to Earth Command. We need reinforcements, and we need to share what we've learned about the barrier. As they coordinated with Earth for support and began repairs, Jacob met with his team to plan their next move. This was a hard hit, but it's shown us we can affect them. We keep pushing, keep fighting, not just for us, but for every civilization trapped by these barriers. Determined faces around him nodded in agreement. The path forward was fraught with danger, but their resolve was clear. They would continue to fight, not just to end their confinement, but to uphold the principles of freedom and justice against a foe that sought to deny them the stars. The Valaris' counterattack had left scars on the Martian base, but it also ignited a fierce determination among the human forces. Repairs were swiftly underway, and the base buzzed with activity as engineers, scientists, and military personnel worked together with a renewed sense of urgency. In the command center, Captain Jacob Miles, Colonel Harland, and Dr. Alan Reed pored over the latest intelligence reports and tactical data. The atmosphere was tense but resolute. We need to keep them on the defensive, Harland stated, his finger tracing potential targets on a holographic map. If we sit back, we give them time to regroup and strengthen their defenses. We need to maintain the pressure. Jacob nodded. Agreed. We'll execute a series of hit-and-run tactics. Small, agile strikes on their outposts near the barrier. Each mission will serve to gather more intelligence and weaken their infrastructure. We need to show them that their control isn't absolute. Alan leaned in, pointing to several outposts marked on the map. These are key points where they maintain the barrier's integrity. If we disrupt these, even temporarily, it could cause significant fluctuations in the barrier, giving us more opportunities to breach it. The plan was set. Over the next few weeks, teams of spearhead ships, now repaired and upgraded with additional stealth capabilities, launched from the Martian base. Each mission was carefully planned, aiming to hit critical Valaris installations and gather vital information about their technology and tactics. Jacob himself led many of these missions, his experience and leadership inspiring the crews. During one particularly daring raid, they targeted a Valaris communications hub located on a moon of a distant gas giant. Remember, speed and precision, Jacob briefed his team as they approached the target. We're in and out before they know what hit them. The attack was swift and devastating. The spearhead ships descended on the outpost, unleashing a barrage of EMP pulses that crippled the communications array. Data servers were quickly hacked, and crucial information was extracted before the ships retreated into the shadows of space, evading the Valaris' attempts to track them. Back at the base, the mood was a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Each successful mission brought new insights and a sense of momentum. In the debriefing room, Jacob, Alan, and Harland analyzed the latest data. "This is it," Alan said, holding up a datapad. "We found a weakness in their energy distribution network. If we can hit this node, it could cause a chain reaction, temporarily disabling a large section of the barrier." Jacob's eyes lit up with determination. "Then that's our next target. We gather our forces and hit them hard. This could be the breakthrough we need." The mission to strike the energy node was the most ambitious yet. It required a coordinated assault from multiple fronts, with ships launching from Earth, Mars, and lunar bases. The element of surprise was crucial. As the spearhead fleet approached the target, Jacob addressed his crew over the comms. "This is for everyone who's been fighting with us, for all the lives lost, and for the future of humanity. Let's show them what we're made of." The battle was intense. The Valaris defenses were formidable, but the human forces, driven by a relentless desire for freedom, pressed on. Spearhead ships weaved through enemy fire, focusing their attacks on the critical energy node. Amid the chaos, Jacob's ship took a direct hit, causing alarms to blare and systems to flicker. "We're not done yet," he shouted, steering his damaged ship towards the target. "Divert all power to the weapons and shields. We're taking that node down." With a final, desperate push, Jacob's ship unleashed a concentrated burst of energy at the node. The resulting explosion was spectacular, sending shockwaves through the Valaris infrastructure. For a brief, glorious moment, a massive section of the barrier flickered and went down. "Mission accomplished," Jacob said, a mixture of relief and triumph in his voice. "All units, return to base." Back on Mars, the mood was jubilant. The successful strike had shown that the Valaris were not invincible. However, the cost had been high. Many ships were damaged, and there were casualties among the crew. In the command center, Jacob addressed his weary but determined team. "We've proven that we can fight back, that we can win. But this is just the beginning. We'll continue to push, to fight, until we are free." The war with the Valaris was far from over, but the tide had begun to turn. Humanity had shown its strength and resolve, setting the stage for the next phase of their struggle for freedom. In the wake of their groundbreaking assault on the Valaris energy node, the human forces had not only proven their capability to strike effectively, but had also inspired a surge of morale across their ranks. However, the victory was not without its consequences. The Valaris, recognizing the growing threat posed by humanity, began to fortify their positions with even greater might and technological prowess. Captain Jacob Miles, sitting in the war room on Mars, reviewed the latest reconnaissance reports with Colonel Harland and Dr. Alan Reed. The walls were lined with digital maps and real-time satellite imagery, displaying the fortified Valaris positions. "Their defenses have doubled around every major installation. They're taking us seriously now, which means we'll have to be smarter," Harland observed, his finger tracing the outlines of newly erected Valaris defense towers on the screen. Jacob nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "We've shown them our teeth. Now we need to be strategic about when and where we bite. Alan, any thoughts on their technology advancements?" Alan, who had been studying the data from their last raid, looked up. "They've adapted quickly. The technology they're deploying for barrier reinforcement is unlike anything we've seen. But every system has its flaws. We just need to find it. Jacob turned to the gathered military strategists. We'll need to adjust our tactics. Smaller, more frequent strikes. Hit and run. Keep them off balance while Alan and his team work on finding a vulnerability. The new strategy was set into motion. Spearhead squads were dispatched with orders to engage in quick, sharp encounters that targeted the outer defenses of the Valaris installations, never lingering long enough to face the brunt of the alien counterattacks. As the skirmishes continued, Dr. Reed and his team of scientists made a critical breakthrough. They discovered a recurring pattern in the Valaris' barrier reinforcement technology, a specific frequency that seemed to stabilize the energy matrix. Jacob, we've got something, Alan reported during one of their strategy meetings. If we can generate a counter-frequency that disrupts this pattern, we might be able to create instabilities in the barrier, possibly even bring sections of it down temporarily. Jacob's response was immediate. Prepare a prototype device. We'll test it on the next raid. The opportunity came soon after. Intel suggested that a major Valaris supply route would be temporarily exposed as their forces shifted to counter another series of strikes. Jacob decided that this was the moment to test Alan's new technology. With a small fleet of spearhead ships, including one equipped with the prototype disruption device, Jacob led the mission personally. As they neared the barrier, the device was activated, emitting a powerful burst of the counter frequency. The effect was instant. A visible shudder ran through the section of the barrier they targeted, and then, like the surface of a disturbed pond, it rippled and dissolved. "This is it. Move through now," Jacob commanded, leading his fleet through the breach. On the other side, they found themselves directly in the path of an unsuspecting Valaris convoy. The ensuing battle was fierce but swift, with the human forces leveraging the surprise to their full advantage. The convoy was decimated, and valuable supplies were seized. As they returned through the breach before it could be repaired, the significance of their victory was clear. This was more than a successful raid. It was a demonstration that the Valaris could no longer consider their control impenetrable. Back at the base, the success of the mission spread like wildfire. Morale soared, and with it, a renewed vigor to continue the fight. "We need to be ready for their response," Jacob cautioned his team, even as they celebrated. "They won't let this stand. We've hit them hard, and they will hit back harder." But even as they prepared for the inevitable retaliation, there was a sense in every heart that the tide of this conflict had begun to turn. Humanity had not only defended its right to exist, but had also declared its refusal to be confined or controlled. As they braced for the next phase, there was a new, unshakable belief in their ultimate victory. The war between humanity and the Valaris reached its peak after Earth's forces demonstrated their ability to disrupt the alien quarantine barrier. The continuous attacks and advancements from the human side forced the Valaris to reconsider their stance. As casualty numbers rose and costs mounted, both civilizations faced the stark reality that the conflict could spiral into mutual destruction. In the command center on Mars, Captain Jacob Miles stood before his leadership team, preparing to discuss the latest and most surprising communication from the Valaris, a proposal for ceasefire negotiations. Colonel Harland, Dr. Alan Reed, and the other key members of the team gathered around, the weight of the moment pressing upon everyone. "We've been through a lot," Jacob began, his voice carrying a mix of weariness and resolve. "We've shown them that we are not a threat to be easily contained. Now, they're willing to talk. I say we hear them out." Colonel Harland nodded in agreement. "It's a chance to end this on terms we can live with. Let's not forget, every day this continues, we risk losing more than we gain." Dr. Reed, always the voice of caution, added, "We need to approach this with open eyes. Their technology is still far beyond ours. We must ensure any agreement includes safeguards against future aggression." The negotiations took place aboard a neutral station, orbiting the cold moon of a distant planet. Jacob led the human delegation with a clear mandate to secure the lifting of the quarantine and ensure the safety and sovereignty of Earth. The Valaris representatives, led by their chief diplomat, Zalara, were initially rigid and formal. Hours of discussions unfolded, with each side cautiously probing the other's intentions and capabilities. Jacob, drawing upon his years of leadership and deep understanding of both human and now Valaris tactics, steered the conversations with a firm but diplomatic hand. "We seek peace, not out of weakness but from strength. We've proven our capabilities and our resolve. Let's find a path forward that respects the rights and security of both our peoples. Zalara, moved by Jacob's sincerity and the clear determination of the human delegation, slowly began to yield. Your actions have spoken loudly, Captain Miles. Perhaps it is time we consider a new approach to our relations with humanity. After intense negotiations, an agreement was reached. The Valaris would lift the quarantine, recognizing Earth's sovereignty. In return, Earth agreed to establish a demilitarized zone around the quarantine barrier's former location, which would be monitored by both human and Valaris forces to prevent future conflicts. Additionally, a mutual non-aggression pact was signed, opening the door for future trade and technology exchanges. When Jacob returned to Mars with the news, the base erupted in celebration. Yet, for Jacob, the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high and the future was uncertain. But for now, Earth was free. We've opened a new chapter for humanity, he told his team as they looked out over Mars's horizon. This is our chance to rebuild, to learn from our past and move forward with hope. Let's lead by example. Let's show the galaxy that humanity is a force for good. As Earth began to rebuild and forge new paths into the cosmos, Jacob Miles remained a central figure in the ongoing efforts to strengthen human space capabilities and foster peaceful interstellar relations. The war had changed them all, but it had also opened a myriad of possibilities. Humanity was no longer confined to the shadows of Earth. The stars were finally within reach, and the future, filled with unknowns, awaited with open arms. The dawn of a new era had begun, and under the vast starlit sky, anything seemed possible.